Hi, thanks for joining me. Today I'd like to engage in a thought experiment. What if the Atari 7800 and the Nintendo Entertainment System were released in North America at the same time? As we know, North America experienced a video game crash roughly between the years 1983 and 1985. The Atari 2600 was losing favor, and the Atari 5200 failed to take off, and the future of the gaming industry was in question. This void in the home console gaming market was ultimately filled by Nintendo in late 1985, but what if it hadn't been? Atari had planned to release the 7800 in 1984, even doing a limited release in June of that year, but they ultimately shelved the system. Meanwhile, in Japan, Nintendo had released the Famicom on July 15th of 1983. Let's instead pretend that sometime between mid-1983 and mid-1984, both Atari and Nintendo released their then-new systems to a relatively stable North American video game market. I'd like for us to look at the full North American library of the 7800, around 57 titles, in comparison to the first 57 titles released for the Nintendo Famicom, and consider what impact these two systems and game libraries may have had. We'll take a few moments to look at side-by-side comparison screenshots of each game, and I'll discuss my thoughts at the end. I hope you'll join me in the comments. Let's get started. So what's my takeaway from the past couple of minutes? I think we see two libraries on two consoles that aren't as different as you might think. From a technical perspective, we see games that adequately replicate the arcade experience at home, the focus of console gaming up to that point. On these two game libraries, we see game developers struggling with the question, what is a home console game? And I think it's clear that none of them have adequately answered that question in the first 57 titles released on these systems. So there's an opportunity here for Atari to place time, talent, and money into console game development, and possibly come around to some genres that defined the home console gaming experience in the mid to late 80s. From a technical standpoint, I think both consoles have a lot of room to grow. Memory mappers are used on the NES cartridges to provide more storage space for game data, as well as provide access to other chips, such as sound or RAM chips, that provide capabilities beyond what the hardware is initially capable of. The Atari 7800 has a similar capability to utilize the pokey sound chip on game cartridges for improved sound, used on games like Commando. I don't know if it would have been capable of using something like the NES's memory mappers, but I have a feeling that it may have been a possibility. Outside of our thought experiment, Atari had just been the primary cause and victim of the gaming crash of the early 80s. Nintendo had a full 2 to 3 years to experiment with 8-bit console game development in their domestic market, so when they released a landmark side-scrolling platforming game, Super Mario Bros., as a pack-in with their games console in North America, it's no wonder that it made such a huge impact. It takes talent such as Shigeru Miyamoto or Yuji Horii to show us how it's done, and when they did, it opened the door to other talented developers to create engaging home console gaming experiences. I think it's wonderful that Nintendo as a company and the NES as a platform was able to usher in the 8-bit console gaming era in North America. In other markets, such as Europe, however, the circumstances were different, and the console gaming market wasn't disrupted by the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System the way it was in North America. When capable developers such as LucasArts release a game like Ball Blazer on the 7800, we see, at least on a technical level, something fairly impressive, but quality developers were largely shut out of development for the 7800 after Nintendo entered the market. In fact, if we look at the list of publishers involved in these initial 57 titles, we see 9 third-party publishers on the NES and only 3 on the 7800. Of course, we can't change history, and I don't think I'd want to. But I think this has been a fun opportunity to reflect on a moment in time when 8-bit home console gaming was still in its infancy, and the North American market was anyone's game. I have a feeling many folks haven't taken the time to examine the 7800's games library, and I think it's been fun to compare it with the initial library of games on the Famicom. While some of the later 7800 titles were developed well after this initial set of Famicom games, it seems clear to me that both consoles' beginnings were not so different from each other. I hope this video was informative. Please share and like it if you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll join me again for more video gaming and anime related videos. Take care.